48% of business people don't follow up more than once. 80% of business is earned after 5 or more follow-ups. If today's episode sparks any new ideas in you, please hit follow and leave a quick review for me. So I read every single one and it helps us to get more eyes on all this great conversation we're having. On to the episode. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of Purpose-Driven Progress. I'm your host, Jacob Hicks, success coach, sales coach, and speaker. And guys, I'm really excited to be back. We had a bit of a hiatus here in April. Had to just get some things figured out. And the first season was really awesome. I met some incredible people, as my listeners know, and it's been really great. And I'm just stoked to be back. So we're going to be talking through some sales stuff today. And I'm really excited about it because I've been getting a lot of questions on Instagram and on TikTok and just kind of all over the place around just kind of sales conversations. Because if you're a business owner out there, you're probably saying some similar things where you're saying, I've got to sell, right? I need people to buy my stuff. I need them to buy my products, my services, whatever it is that you're moving, right? But I don't want to be a salesperson. And I tell you, it's a super common thing. People often think of salespeople as like the used car salesman, right? Like that stereotypical, like you go in there just to ask some questions or maybe to test drive a car you think you might want to buy. And they're just hard selling you the whole time. It's like, hey, do you want to buy this? You want to buy this? A lot of times we'll get the 1 to 10 close. Maybe you guys have had this before where they say something like, okay, based on your experience with what we've talked about today or this car that we're trying out, where would you rank this car on 1 to 10? Oh, maybe I'll probably call this like an 8. Okay, what would this car have to get it to a 10? Yeah. I've been through that personally. It's not my favorite thing. I'm a sales guy. I appreciate somebody out there hustling and grinding and putting in the work and putting in the effort. But talk to me a little bit. Ask some questions. Figure out what makes sense. And that's why we're going to talk about some sales stuff today. Today, we are diving in with both feet into follow-up. And I know just from my experience that a lot of you out there listening, man, your face is tightened up a little bit. I kind of got a little bit squinty, right? Where you're just like, oh gosh, I have to follow up. What are you talking about? I don't want to be following up. Like, I just want people to buy stuff. A lot of times you can't have one without the other. So let me give you guys a few facts here. I was doing some research and preparing for this episode, but then also just for some clients that I'm working on. And actually, I've got a free gift for you guys at the end of the episode, so stick around for that. But let me run some facts by you guys really quick. Fun facts, I think, but ones that they're pretty serious, I'll say. So, fun fact number 1, 48% of business people don't follow up more than once. Let me read that again. 48% of business people don't follow up more than once. And that's people like us, like entrepreneurs, business owners, founders, salespeople even. And that is, frankly, it's awful. It's really unfortunate. Because that means that you're leaving a vast majority of your business, of your money, of your revenue, of your clients, of your connections on the table. You're saying, if I got to call you more than once, then you're probably not going to do business with me. No, who cares? It's no big deal. Let me give you another fact. 80% of business is earned after 5 or more follow-ups. 80%. That means that if you don't call somebody more than once or twice, you're leaving 4/5, if I'm doing my fractions correctly, on the table. You're leaving a majority of your business on the table. Now, here's the other one that a lot of people I feel like can get overlooked when we're talking about follow-up. 2% of business is earned in the first conversation. That means if you meet somebody at a networking event and you cold call them, however you're connecting with them, the 2% of the time, you're going to close them. That means that 98% of your business is left on the table if you expect to earn all of your money, all of your business, all of your clientele in that first connection. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not okay with that. I don't like leaving business on the table as much as I can help it. Now, there's going to be instances where you make mistakes or you forget to follow up or those kind of things. But a lot of this comes down to systems. What systems do you guys have in place? I've said it once, I've said it a million times. One of my favorite quotes is by James Clear from his book, Atomic Habits. It's we don't rise to our goals, we fall to our systems. Now, in this case, there's going to be when we're talking about follow-up especially, there's going to be a pretty wide variety of these various systems, meaning that what might work for me might not work for you as well, or it might not work at all. And when we're talking about different sales strategy and these kind of things, industry is going to really leverage a lot on what we're actually doing. Meaning, for example, if you are selling something that's $50, $100, $200, then your follow-up system may not need to be as rigorous as, say, if you're selling something for $100,000. And it might, if you're selling that $200 item or that $200 service, you might need to follow up a little more frequently, meaning you're touching base every week or every other week. Whereas, somebody that's selling a larger ticket item, they might do something similar, or they might say, hey, I'm going to follow up with you in a month. I'm going to follow up with you at the end of the quarter. Like those kind of conversations. But really, at the bare roots, when we're talking about follow-up, what I really mean is, do you have a plan? Meaning, let's say you meet like your perfect client, your perfect customer out and about at a networking event or at the grocery store or whatever the case might be. You meet the perfect person. You know this person is ideal. This is exactly the kind of person that you love to work with. This is where you do the best work. You get their contact information, you guys hit it off, right? What is your next step? And that's really what we're talking about. Because so often, the reason that people don't follow up more than once, or people they lose 80% of their business, or their potential business, is because they don't have that plan in place. Meaning that, okay, you meet me, your perfect client, out and about, you get my contact information, whatever form that might be. What is your next step? What is the very next step? Meaning, okay, I met Jacob out. I'm going to call him tomorrow morning and see if we can set up a coffee, or I'm going to kick him an email, or we talked about X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to send him this resource that I know I've got. Those kind of things. So we just have to be intentional and have that plan. And today, you guys are going to walk out with at least the beginnings of a really strong plan to start building something that will allow you to close a lot more business and not leave 80% of it on the table. How's that sound? Does that sound good? Okay. When it comes to follow-up, like I said, in sales, there's a lot of legs to the stool, if you'll follow me here. Meaning that you can't just follow up and expect to earn a lot of business. You have to have the other things around it for it to all jive and work together, okay? Now, the first part of this is we're going to talk about the actual plans themselves. Now, when I first start working with people and they're looking to generate a little more business and making sure their follow-up is a little bit stronger, I always recommend starting out with a couple of different strategies. The first is what I call a 10 by 10, meaning that let's say you meet me, your perfect client, out at the grocery store, you get my contact information. Then for the next 10 weeks, you're going to reach out to me 10 times. Now, again, I can hear it. I can hear it out there. People are just like, oh gosh, I have to call this guy 10 times. What am I going to talk about? What do I say? What do I do? Why am I calling him 10 times? Follow-up is all about consistency, meaning that you want to make sure that you are following up consistently, but more importantly, you want to make sure that you're following up from a place of value. I'm going to say that again. You want to follow up from a place of value. Now, this means that we aren't going to be like those kind of salespeople, those super pushy ones that we've all engaged with at some point or another, where they call you every third day and say, hey, you want to buy my stuff? I still got my stuff. Do you want to buy my stuff now? We're not that guy, okay? We're not the guy in the park with the very sketchy trench coat, okay? We're not that dude. So we're going to follow consistently. And the reason I suggest doing a 10 by 10 is because that allows you to warm up the prospect. And when I say warm up the prospect, it means you are starting to build more rapport. You're building a relationship with them. One is going to show that you are a credible person. You're actually going to follow through on what you say, meaning that you call me and you say, hey, Jacob, it was great to meet you at the grocery store the other day. You wanted me to reach out to you. If I don't hear from you, then I'll touch base with you again next Monday or whatever the case might be. Something to that effect. And then you actually do it. You actually show up consistently. Okay? Because again, most businesses won in 5 or more follow-ups. Okay? It's just starting to build that process. Now, when we're following up, I don't feel like you have to do it for calling every single time. What I do recommend is some sort of variety. Meaning, like take me, for instance, I like to text. I like texting people back and forth and stuff. Hey, I got a question. Hey, do you want to hang out? That kind of thing. I like texting people. I don't call people a lot unless the text would be super, super long. Okay. And I have this information I need to give you. Here's a bunch of it. Here it is. Okay, bye. I also prefer to be in person, do those kind of things. Now, I want you guys to think about this too. Like, how do you like to be connected with? Now, when we're prospecting, when we're trying to build rapport with potential clients, we want to try to hit every note if we can. Meaning that you might meet a guy and he likes calls. So you call him and you guys connect. Now you might again meet a guy like me who prefers texts. So you send him a text and you connect that way. Another guy might like emails. Another guy might prefer meeting for coffee, that kind of a thing. So you want to try to do a variety of different things, but again, show up consistently for it. So in your 10 by 10, meaning that again, you meet somebody out at the grocery store, the following Monday, you put them on your 10 by 10 plan, and here's what it could look like. Okay? So that first week, you call them. And again, you're going to come from value, saying, hey, it was really great to meet you. I would love to meet for coffee. See if this makes sense, that kind of a thing. So the next 2 weeks after that, assuming you don't connect with them and set up that coffee, for example, maybe you email them. The following week, you do another call. The next 2 weeks, you do a text. Now, the seventh week, I really like this. People hardly ever do this in today's modern, immediate gratification world. I really love to do a handwritten note, particularly if you guys have engaged a little bit, because it shows you we're willing to put time and effort into something like that. Now, the next week, the 8th week, you call them. And the 9th and 10th week, you email them again. Now, again, I've talked about this a lot already, but you want to come from a place of value. So what does value look like? Here's what I want you guys to realize. Or let me ask you a question, actually. Who else in this world knows as much about your business as you? Now, I'm not talking about comparing yourself here, saying that if you're in marketing, for example, there's not incredible marketers out there. Sure, there's always going to be people that are better at this, that, or the other than we are. But who knows more about your business than you do? I'm going to posit that nobody on this world knows as much as you do, okay? So assuming that's the case, because we all know it's true, you know the most, then you also know what kind of questions you're getting. Meaning, hey, I'm in marketing, or like that kind of like social media, it's a follow-up kind of world. So how often should I be posting on it, like Facebook or Instagram? How do I know if a campaign is successful? How much money should I be spending on ads? What does that kind of stuff look like? Should I be doing a whole bunch of like mailers and stuff, or do people really even do that anymore? Do people like look at that stuff, or they just throw it away? Is there any kind of return on it? Those are the kind of questions that if you're in that marketing world, you're probably getting a lot and getting often. And that's going to be true of every industry. If you spent more than 2 minutes in an industry, then you know the questions you're probably going to be getting. So I want you guys to answer those questions. Now, I love doing it in emails, especially where you're saying, oh, hey, John, based on our conversation about marketing that we had at the networking event the other day, I thought this might be of value to you. Here's kind of my top 3 reasons to do X, or 3 reasons to do Y, or 3 things to avoid. That's just a free touch. Touches are what we call these kind of conversations, where you're not necessarily always going to be back and forth, meaning you might not even get a phone call back, right? But a touch just means that you've reached out to someone and they have seen your name, your number, your email, whatever, come across like their information, right? Like they have seen you come up in their life again. And all the consistency is really key here, okay? Now, let's say you meet somebody out again, you put them on the 10 by 10 plan, you call them, you email them, you text them, and over the course of that couple of months, you hear bupkis, you hear nothing. And you're like, I know. I was like, oh man, I thought that guy was going to be perfect. Yes, he doesn't want it. I'm going to give up. Nope. We continue. My rule of thumb is I will follow up with you until you tell me you no longer want me to. And you tell me that, you have to tell me it, or one of us dies. Pretty simple rules, right? So you just keep following up. Now, if you know any like true salespeople out in the world, then all of us have stories or instances where like we met somebody somewhere, sometime, we followed up with them, we never heard from them. And then a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, they pick up the phone and said, hey, I'm so glad you called. I'm ready to do business. So that is the kind of thing that we are trying to build here, because that again is where the vast majority of business is earned. All right. So the 10 by 10, that's where I start people. Now, all of this, the big caveat here, I want you guys to all think about this and ask yourselves, how can I apply this to me? Because I can give you all the strategies in the world, all the solutions in the world, but if you apply none of them because none of them fit either what you're trying to build or you're just not going to do them, then it doesn't matter. So ask yourself, how can I apply this? How can I change this and make this my own? Now, an example of this is I was working with some folks and they were, again, similar position where they were just trying to get into some of the sales systems world. And we talked about the 10 by 10 plan. And they said, based on just kind of my clientele and what's been working for me, I think I'm going to do a 7 by 7, meaning that they're going to work or they're going to reach out once a week for 7 weeks. Right? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But again, the really key here is following up consistently. Staying in front of people is absolutely key. All right. So we followed up with somebody for 10 by 10, 10 times for 10 weeks, 7 times for 7 weeks, whatever the case might be. And then we hear nothing. We hear crickets. So what do we do now? Now we talk about what's called a drip campaign. It's the long-term campaign, meaning that we want to stay in front of people still, but we're thinking that this might be a longer-term cultivation to try to earn some business, hopefully at some point. So now this next one, again, nobody run for the hills. It can be a little intimidating sometimes. It's called a 36 touch. Now I got this from my time in real estate, working for Keller Williams back in the day. Now, this means that over the course of 12 months, we reach out 36 times. Now, I know people are like, oh my gosh, how am I going to call somebody 36 times in 12 months? I'm going to be calling people all the time. They're going to be annoyed. I'm going to be annoyed. I don't want to talk to them that much. No, most of this is going to be emails, okay? Now, a lot of us entrepreneurs and people with websites and just places of business have a newsletter, some variety of it, meaning that periodically, either bi-weekly, every week, once a month, we send out an email of some sort saying, here's what's going on in the world, in our world. So if you do that twice a month for 12 months, that's 24 emails. So we're 2/3 of the way there to our 36 touches already. Now, I do very strongly, again, suggest calls because in the hierarchy of communication, I mean, in person, face-to-face is going to be the best. Then phone calls come after that because, again, it gives us that same human interaction. But I mean, not as good, but still as close as we can get. So you call them once a quarter, every quarter. So that's four calls. And then you do a birthday card, if you can get that kind of information. And then maybe you do a wedding anniversary card. And then maybe you do some holiday cards or some holiday emails, those kind of things, having some events or something. There's a million reasons to reach out to people. Again, all of this is coming from value. But again, we want to make sure we're doing this consistently over the long term. Now, one of my favorite kind of touches I got from real estate again. Now, over the course, I live in Iowa, as some may or may not know. I live in Iowa, and shocking to nobody, Iowa gets cold in the winter. So when we were in real estate, towards the end of the year, and we're talking like September, October, once it starts getting colder again, we would reach out to everybody that we'd work with or everybody on our email list and say, hey, thanks so much for working with us this year. We're really great doing business with you. Make sure to unscrew your hose from your house and take all the water out of it because it'll freeze and it will really mess up your plumbing, messes up your pipes, right? Now that's a free touch that it doesn't really require a lot of interaction. Saying like, hey, you want to do business with me again? But it's just a value add that's really simple and just helping people at the end of the day. Okay. Now, again, I mentioned it before, but it barely bears repeating is find like the fun touches. Like those, like the birthday, the wedding anniversary, or like your business anniversary. Let's say you've been working with somebody for a long time, and every year on March 15th or whatever day, it's like, hey, it's our anniversary. We started working together 1 year ago. What are we going to do for our paper anniversary? Something just fun and goofy like that. It just lets people know that you are keeping them front of mind. Okay. Now, there's a big caveat to all of this stuff. So as I mentioned before, follow-up is a piece of the pie. It's a piece of what we're trying to build. Now, there's some other things that we have to have. Now, you have to talk about your messaging, meaning like, what are the things you're actually saying and how are you saying them? Another piece of this is your CRM. Now, that's a customer relationship manager, meaning you meet somebody out, you get their contact information. Where does their contact information live? if you're sending them emails, or maybe you're sending them automatic emails, as most CRM should be able to do nowadays, sending them automatic emails, then where's all of that living? And let's say you have a great conversation on the phone and you say, hey, like, gosh, they really want to do business. They've got a lot of stuff going on right now. They want me to follow up here in a month. We want to talk about X, Y, and Z. Where do those notes live? If they're just like in your notebook, and that's okay to start. If they're in an Excel spreadsheet, again, that's a place to start. But as you continue to grow your business and your clientele, are you going to be able to manage something like that in an Excel spreadsheet when you have 100, 500, 1,000 customers and former customers? Probably not. So a CRM, that customer relationship manager, is absolutely key. Now, the other piece of this too is what happens when we talk to somebody on the phone and they say no. That's when rejection comes into play. And rejection is another really key piece to selling in general also. You have to develop a bit of a thicker skin to people telling you no, or why don't you get the freaking hell out of my office, man. There you go. We're done with this. Now, I mentioned a free gift. So we talked about follow-up a ton here today. All of these things are really important. It's probably a little bit too much that we can't get into right now, unfortunately. I'll probably do some more episodes about some of these other topics that I mentioned later on in the coming months. But I did build out a free gift for everybody listening today. It's called my Entrepreneur Sales Toolkit. So if any of this resonated with you, I would highly recommend you guys. It's a free download. It's a PDF that you guys can run through at your leisure. I've got I'll send you some emails to go along with it to help you support, understand more what's going on. But this is really something that I built because I was getting so many questions about all of these topics. So I put something together that everybody can hopefully use as a tool, both in the sense of like, hey, I'm trying to build out my follow-up systems right now, and how do I continue to grow my business over the long term? So I'll include that in the show notes for anybody listening. But thank you guys so much for following along on my journey. It really does mean a ton to me, and I will see you guys next time.